There have already been a total of 6 different SpongeBob movies, counting the 2 spin-off movies at least. And with the most recent SpongeBob movie, which basically just came out, I decided I want to do a mini retrospective series in which I talk about all 6 of them. What ones I like, what ones I dislike, and not just the quality of them, but also the impact each of them had on the SpongeBob franchise itself, as an interesting discussion can be had about that when talking about each of them too. And let us begin by talking about what just may be not just the 2 most influential SpongeBob movies, but also the 2 best SpongeBob movies? Believe it or not, SpongeBob wasn't always this massive phenomenon and one of the biggest kids shows on TV. And there was a time when it might have not went on to become as big of a success as it did. There was a time when SpongeBob looked like this, and in the original version of SpongeBob, which was a book titled The Intertidal Zone, he wasn't even the main character. It was this interesting shrimp character. And when SpongeBob did eventually make its debut on TV, there were some people hating on it, and saying that it's so bad that it's proof Nickelodeon is running out of ideas and that the show is doomed. But it was indeed not doomed, as the show was a big hit and so successful that it got picked up for not just 1, but eventually 3 seasons and then a theatrical movie titled, well, the SpongeBob SquarePants Movie, which then catapulted SpongeBob to an even higher level of success than ever before, and cemented it as Nickelodeon's biggest TV show, one that is still going on today. Being a show that debuted in 1999 and had all of its classic era seasons premiere on TV in the early 2000s, this movie was the very first time that SpongeBob took the leap to not just being in HD, but also widescreen, which may not seem that significant nowadays, but that was a pretty big change for the show. And this movie handled that big change perfectly. They didn't decide to completely change the visual style of SpongeBob to fit the medium of the big screen. They didn't make it suddenly CGI like later SpongeBob movies would. And being how this movie is from 2004, I'm happy that they didn't do that, because man, a 2004 CGI SpongeBob movie would look so dated. But no, this movie basically captured the same feel of the show, just giving it a more expensive and expressive look, showing that you really don't need to change much about SpongeBob as a show to make it function good as a movie. And another thing that shows that is the opening of the movie. All of the characters are very in line with how they act in the show. They haven't been changed at all. And we see in the beginning, through a very fun dream sequence, not only how SpongeBob still has that childlike, innocent love for his job that he has in the show, but we also see just how much it means to him the possibility that he might become manager of the Krusty Krab. And then we see that today is the day of the grand opening ceremony of the Krusty Krab 2, where he expects to be made the manager. But then, nope, because of how childish he is, Mr. Krabs gives it to Squidward instead of SpongeBob, and we see just how sad that makes him. And then we see at Goofy Goober's how, as his best friend, Patrick lifts SpongeBob up after he didn't get the promotion, and gets him to celebrate and have fun anyways, eating a ton of Goofy Goober sundaes. But he has a little too much fun, as SpongeBob gets completely drunk off of all of the ice cream. A funny concept, getting drunk off of ice cream, though believe it or not, something that can actually happen in real life. as you can actually get drunk off of eating too much. But for that to happen, you need to eat a lot. Anyways, despite still being pretty drunk at first, when he shows up at the Krusty Krab the next day, SpongeBob does show up at the exact perfect time, as King Neptune is about to kill Mr. Krabs, because Plankton framed Mr. Krabs for stealing Neptune's crown. And despite still being very mad at Mr. Krabs for not promoting him to manager, SpongeBob jumps in the way and stands up to Neptune, the king of the entire ocean, and says he won't let him kill Mr. Krabs. So King Neptune gives him 10 days, well, 6 days thanks to Patrick in a very funny scene, to travel all the way to the forbidden, scary Shell City and get his crown back. And Neptune freezes Mr. Krabs into basically a statue made of ice, Han Solo style. But all of this also isn't without Neptune additionally laughing at SpongeBob's confidence in himself and telling him that there's no way he'll actually be successful in his mission, for the very same reason Mr. Krabs didn't promote him to being manager. SpongeBob is just a kid, and none of the people around him believe he can actually amount to anything big or successful that he dreams of, or succeed at doing anything big he sets out to do, except for his good buddy Patrick, who he leaves Bikini Bottom with to get that crown. We also get a funny scene in which we see Patrick has a crush on Neptune's daughter, Mindy, and him having a thing for mermaids, believe it or not, is actually something that comes up again later in future episodes of SpongeBob. I guess everyone has a type. And Mindy, by the way, was voiced by Scarlett Johansson, who, despite being a celebrity and actress mostly known for playing a bunch of live-action characters, including one of the most iconic and well-known Marvel heroes, one of the original 6 Avengers in the MCU, the Black Widow, she doesn't give a lazy, stereotypical celebrity voice acting performance. She was very good as Mindy, and there was a very good chance you wouldn't even know she was the one voicing the character unless if... well, you already know before watching the movie. Anyways, Mindy tells SpongeBob and Patrick what to do once they get Neptune's crown, and gives them a magical bag of wind as a way for them to get back to Bikini Bottom. And then she sends them on their way. And then we get that iconic scene of SpongeBob and Patrick hopping into the paddy wagon, and Patrick saying, "Hey, I thought you didn't have a license." And then SpongeBob saying, "You don't need a license to drive a sandwich," which is pretty awesome because not only is that a very funny, quotable line, but it also explains how we can have a movie where SpongeBob goes on this big adventure while not breaking the established, continuity of SpongeBob, being someone who doesn't have a license and is very bad at driving. Yet another way this movie proves that you don't need to change that much about SpongeBob as a show to make a good movie out of it. And speaking of iconic moments, we also get the scene of SpongeBob and Patrick pulling up at a gas station before fully setting out on the path to Shell City, and then the 2 guys at the gas station see them and what they're driving and just start laughing at them and laughing at the idea that those 2 kids are ever gonna make it alive to Shell City, which not only is a scene that establishes even more the stakes and dangers of what lies ahead for the 2 main characters of the movie, SpongeBob and Patrick, so that the audience knows that this isn't just another average everyday adventure for SpongeBob that we've seen him go on before in other episodes. Well, yeah, he might be somewhere outside of the usual Bikini Bottom, and he may even be surrounded by some advanced darkness or something like that. But there's not much of an actual threat that he's going to, you know, die. But no, in this movie, there is. But along with establishing even more that fact, this scene also gives us that extremely iconic and funny line of, "Are they laughing at us? No, Patrick, they're laughing next to us." And following that scene, there's the one where SpongeBob and Patrick have to go into this tough guy establishment that only actual men are allowed in. Because because someone in the building stole the paddy wagon and the key for it. And SpongeBob and Patrick must attempt to fit in with all of these guys and not break character when a bubble they blow gets found by the tough guys, and the one in charge of the establishment lines everyone up and begins playing the Goofy Google theme song to see who breaks and who can't help but sing along to it. And despite being Goofy Goobles deep down, they must not. And then they successfully get out of there without getting found out. And after having gotten through that, they decide to stop for some ice cream and are tricked by this giant menacing fish with big teeth and everything. That isn't actually an old lady selling ice cream, but was actually just trying to trick them to get them close enough to eat them. And man, I love everything about this action sequence. The spooky, foggy atmosphere and the unsettling vibes you get before you find out what's actually going on. The creepy, unsettling nature of the fake old lady, and then the fake pet cat we also end up seeing, which is the definition of nightmare fuel. I love how cinematic this action sequence is, and how for a minute it keeps you on the edge of your seat as SpongeBob and Patrick come so close to getting eaten, and only make it out of this giant fish's grasp last minute. And then after almost dying, and then finding themselves standing at the edge of a huge bottomless trench inhabited by a bunch of giant monsters, SpongeBob looks at Patrick and tells him maybe what everyone said about them was true, and they are not gonna be able to make it to Shell City, so they might as well just give up and head home. But just then, just as they are about to do that, Mindy shows up and tells them that they can't do that. They can't give up. Because not only did he steal the Krabby Patty secret formula, but Plankton has taken over Bikini Bottom and turned all of SpongeBob and Patrick's friends into zombie slaves. So it's up to SpongeBob and Patrick to get the crown back and save the town and everyone they know from Plankton and his evil schemes. And Mindy also gives the two of them fake mustaches and convinces them that now, because of their mustaches, they have successfully become actual men, and now they can make it to Shell City. And with this newfound confidence, they continue on the path. And what follows is what might honestly be one of the most fun and classically SpongeBob goofy scenes, where SpongeBob and Patrick are going around in the deep trench full of monsters while just happily singing about how they aren't afraid of anything now that they're actual men. And they sing about a bunch of the, when you think about it, pretty shallow and fake things that make them adult, manly men and not just kids. Like how the two of them now have facial hair and Patrick now changes his underwear. But they soon come face to face with Dennis, an evil assassin hired by Plankton to step on them. And he tells them straight up that their mustaches are fake and completely destroys this newfound image SpongeBob and Patrick had of themselves being actual men. And then Dennis gets interrupted when the giant Cyclops shows up. And I need to briefly talk about how creative the character design is for the Cyclops. Because nowadays I think they tend to look different, but this is just what scuba diving suits used to look like. And yeah, two ocean animals who don't know anything about, you know, us humans, someone wearing that type of scuba diving suit would indeed probably look like some giant Cyclops. And the Cyclops is shown snatching up SpongeBob and Patrick and kidnaps them, and he takes them to a gift shop where they are surrounded by a bunch of dead sea life. life that he's been using to make decorations out of. And after just having the confidence and false sense of security in being man enough to save the day pulled away from them by Dennis, and now placed on a table below a big heated lamp that is drying them up and slowly killing them, SpongeBob and Patrick are met with the crushing fact that it seems like everyone was correct about them. They are just kids, incapable of making it to Shell City. And not only did they fail, but they let everyone down. But that's when they look off to the side and see a sign. And at that moment, they realize this gift shop is Shell City. And despite just being kids, they did make it. And as SpongeBob says, they did okay for a couple of goofballs. And with that, as they fully dry up, SpongeBob and Patrick let out a bit of a cry, which then sets off a chain reaction, setting them free. And after the Cyclops gets defeated, they are once again off with Neptune's crown and ready to head back to Bikini Bottom, as they find themselves on dry land at a live-action beach. And I always loved the atmosphere of this scene with the waves and everything. But when they are unable to use the magical bag of winds given to them by Mindy to get back home, that's when David Hasselhoff shows up, who is not a lifeguard, but he plays one on TV. And there have been many celebrity cameos in SpongeBob throughout the years, but this is, in my opinion, the best example of one, as it's not just some type of celebrity cameo that comes in and pauses the movie, like the celebrity cameos in the 10th anniversary special. No, he shows up and moves the plot along by helping SpongeBob and Patrick get back to Bikini Bottom just in time to save Mr. Krabs from being executed by King Neptune. And there's also something inherently funny about David Hasselhoff just showing up out of nowhere without any build-up throughout the movie and just saving the day, and how they have this big final show-off action sequence with SpongeBob, Patrick, and Dennis, which, by the way, looks very cinematic and is an amazing sequence. On top of David Hasselhoff, a scene for which, when making the movie, they made an entire life-sized model of David Hasselhoff. And there's also an element in the movie to him being some type of humanoid android or something. And you can't forget about the ending of the movie, how SpongeBob defeats Plankton with the power of an absolutely legendary SpongeBob song. You all know it. It's so good and iconic. And finally, he becomes manager, and the Ween song Ocean Man plays over the credits. And yeah, such an awesome movie. I absolutely love it. And so did so many people when it came out. And while some people have debates about whether or not season 4 can be technically considered a classic SpongeBob season, despite coming out after the movie, most people do consider this movie to have been the one last hurrah ending of classic SpongeBob. And even though I'm not one of those people that hates on every single SpongeBob season after the movie, I think every season has at least a few good episodes. I do believe this movie wasn't just when classic SpongeBob peaked, but when SpongeBob itself as a show and franchise peaked. One thing that stood out while watching it again for this video is that it's kinda poetic that one of the main themes that kept coming up throughout it is how SpongeBob is a kid, and that's okay. He doesn't have to change who he is to accomplish what he sets out to, just because a bunch of people don't think that he's enough of a man to succeed. And I find that kind of poetic because that's basically a message that you can take away from the success of this movie, as it fundamentally did not change what SpongeBob is as a show too much as a way of having it translate well into being a movie. In fact, it took everything that makes SpongeBob such an awesome show, its visual style, its comedy, its characters, and instead of changing that, it just placed them in a situation that heightened Plankton's the stakes. Plankton is now the most evil and competent he's ever been, while still having the same goals of stealing the secret formula and taking over Bikini Bottom. It takes SpongeBob and Patrick on a mission that lets them play off of each other as goofy best friends who lift each other up. It challenges who they are as characters, and it teaches them, and us, the audience, a pretty good lesson. And now, over 2 decades and 5 movies later, this movie is still considered by many people to be the best SpongeBob movie. And if we aren't including the SpongeBob musical live on stage as a movie, because that musical is my favorite thing to ever come out of any franchise ever, I do think after watching it again, I have to agree, this is the best SpongeBob movie. And for a while, it was the only SpongeBob movie, as the second SpongeBob movie wouldn't come out until 2015, 11 years after the original SpongeBob movie came out. But when it eventually did, it also left a pretty big splash. Hey, so I was gonna talk about the original SpongeBob movie and the second one in this video, but I'm gonna have to save talking about the second one for the next video because of how kinda overly passionate I got when talking about the original movie, like I often do when talking about SpongeBob stuff. But stay tuned for that video and subscribe if you wanna know when I upload it. And thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Cartoon Post out.